Hey, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games, and I'm here with Jonathan Rogers, our technical director, to show you Path of Exile: War for the Atlas. So this is an expansion that we'll be releasing in December on both PC and Xbox One. It's a follow-up to the successful The Fall of Oriath expansion that we released in August. The Fall of Oriath increased the size of Path of Exile from 4 acts to 10, and we got a whole bunch of new users when we released it, so we're following up with this expansion that has a focus on endgame play, but of course contains content for people of all levels. So, the War for the Atlas expansion introduces 32 new maps to Path of Exile. This is one of them that Jonathan's playing now, the Pillars of Aron. The Path of Exile maps are endgame items which represent areas that you can play in the game world, and we'll be showing you a bunch of examples of these today. When we initially introduced the Atlas of Worlds system last year, players were introduced to an antagonist called the Shaper, who was the big bad guy of that expansion, and he makes a feature in this expansion as well. So this is the Templar Laboratory which players reach at the endgame, and in it they discover the Atlas of Worlds. We've updated this substantially with this atlas, adding an additional 32 maps and updating the pathing so that it makes more sense in terms of what maps connect to which. Now when you play this new atlas, you'll notice this area here, where there are some maps that are contained inside a border that's covered in writhing tentacles. So let's play one of those maps to find out what's going on there. So Jonathan's playing a witch here that's using two different new skills in this expansion. The first one is Unearth. When he casts Unearth, it creates a corpse at the destination. He's using multiple projectiles, so he gets multiple corpses. He's also using this cremation skill, which explodes a corpse into a molten geyser. So while these would normally be used for necromantic purposes, in this case it's kind of an assault spellcaster. You have the ability to barrage enemies at a distance with these skills. So in this map, you'll see that the color is being drained out by this entity called the Tentacle Fiend. The Tentacle Fiend also dramatically weakens the player when he's nearby, and this is an example of one of the types of corruption that maps have when they're affected by the entity known as the Elder. The Elder is what was causing the corruption on the Atlas that Jonathan saw earlier, and as he explores maps that are inside the tentacle boundary, he gets a chance to experience various effects that the Elder can have. So the Elder is an ageless entity who's been inside the Atlas of Worlds for a long time in the map system, and has recently gained enough power to be able to take control of various maps and wrest them from the Shaper's control. And so the War for the Atlas refers to the fact that the Elder and the Shaper are vying for control over the Atlas, and you as a player get to influence this. So this is the Atlas of Worlds that I showed you before. Jonathan's using a cheat here to tick the Atlas. Normally this occurs every time you complete a map, so when you complete a map, the Elder and the Shaper essentially get to take over more maps. Now, the Elder is trying to expand his control, while the Shaper's fighting back from all directions, pushing the Elder in. And as a player, you get the ability to influence this. Whenever you play a map, if you complete it successfully, it takes control away from the Elder or the Shaper, giving the other one an opportunity to go in there. And so because of this, you can change the destiny of the War for the Atlas yourself. There are strong strategic reasons for wanting the Elder to win, or the Shaper to win, or both to win, or neither to win. And so you can work out what your priorities are in an attempt to get the best items for yourself. Let's have a look at a map which the Shaper controls. The Iceberg map is marked with a starry field on the Atlas, and it shows that the Shaper currently has this area after wresting it back from the Elder. So as a casualty of the war, you'll notice that there are these patches of flickering void on the ground where the fabric of reality has been ripped, and you can see the void through it. That's a consequence of the fact that the Shaper and the Elder fought over this area. You also encounter various traps that the Shaper has set up, like these void anomalies, which are kind of munitions from the war that he was using. Players will recognize them from the Atlas of Worlds expansion. Like with the Elder maps, there are a whole variety of different effects that Shaper maps can have, which make the gameplay more difficult. But in both cases, Shaper and Elder maps are more rewarding, more challenging, and basically just better to play than regular maps. And so players will find themselves playing these maps over the ones that they normally play on the Atlas. Of course, this gives them an opportunity to not only find specific rewards that these maps can yield, but also to try to change the course of the Atlas itself for their own gain. There are quite a lot of complicated systems here at play, and a lot of reasons to try to want the Shaper to win or the Elder to win. So let's have a look at some items you can find in the Atlas. So you'll notice that this item here has a starry background. That's because it's a Shaper rare item, and the one to the right is an Elder item with tentacles writhing in the background. So these act a bit like normal Path of Exile rares in that you have mods and you can re-roll them, but because they're Shaper or Elder versions, they get access to special Shaper or Elder mods. And these mods have been clearly divided into two groups. The Shaper ones favor some builds, and the Elder ones favor the others. Now, this can occur on many different item types. These weapons, for example, both have the modifier that says that socketed gems are implicitly supported by a certain support gem. In the case of the Shaper one that Jonathan's looking at here, it's Critical Strike, so that means if you're playing a Critical Strike character, you really want to be finding Shaper weapons. On the other hand, the Elder one favors just pure physical damage with brutality and multi-strike, so it depends whether you want to favor damage or critical strikes in that case. Other items have different mods. These boots, for example, mean that you can't be affected by burning ground. So the gloves, in this case, have level 20 poison support and increased poison duration, neither of which are things you can normally find on rare items. So what's important to note here is that these items are extremely difficult to find and only come from maps that are currently controlled by the Shaper or the Elder. If you have a look at the Atlas, you'll notice that if you were to farm the Shaper areas in an attempt to get those items, that might exterminate it from that part of the map, helping the Elder too much. So you kind of have to set up, I guess, sustainable farming to make sure that you farm them in the correct ratio so that you can get the items that you want, making strategic choices about who you want to actually win the Atlas. So after a certain point, the Elder gets quite a lot of control. In this case, he's spread out over the entire bottom right corner, and because of that, some areas have been marked in purple. This means that the Elder himself can manifest in these maps. Now in this case, they're relatively low tier ones. Let's have a look at what happens when we run the Cage map, which has a purple mark on it. So this Cage map is based on one of the tile sets from Act 5. Some of the maps that we've added in this expansion are taking areas from outside the existing content we used to have in the game and adding it to the end game, and some of it is completely new. This is a particular fan favorite tile set from early on in the Act 5 experience. So Jonathan's going to use a cheat to teleport to get to the end boss. So normally when you encounter this boss, you get quite a horrible fight, but in this case you get a chance to see the Elder. So the Elder surprises the boss, killing it in one hit, and sucking its life force and power out. It then uses this power to construct a boss of its own, a Guardian, and it puts it inside this portal for you to fight. Now the properties of the boss that's been killed dictates a lot about this fight. So for example, if you encounter a Guardian in a relatively low tier map, which comes from a relatively low tier boss, then it's not a particularly difficult encounter. On the other hand, if you have a Guardian that's in a really high tier map, potentially made from one of the Shaper's own Guardians himself, then it's a substantially more difficult and rewarding encounter. Now you have to kill all 4 Guardians before you get a chance to fight the Elder himself, and this means that the player is able to choose whether he fights the Elder early on or late on in maps. It's important to understand, in the Atlas of Worlds expansion, the Shaper, who had a similar kind of setup, could only be fought at the absolute highest difficulty, and that meant that a lot of players only got to see the Shaper after potentially hundreds of hours of gameplay, with many people not experiencing that fight themselves or only seeing it on Twitch. In this expansion, you get a chance to fight the Elder at a variety of different levels, which means many more people will see the content. Having said that, the best rewards are reserved for fighting him in the absolute highest tiers. Now this Lightning Guardian that Jonathan's fighting here is in an arena that also does a bunch of lightning damage, and at various points during the fight, the arena will change as you get teleported by this Guardian into the next one. And it's very important to pay attention to what's going on, because the lightning does a lot of damage, and with the arena changing, of course, it means that there'll be surprises with regard to the timing and location of that lightning damage. So there are four separate Guardians, each with their own theme, and that means in order to be able to get through all 4 of them to the Elder, it's important that you're able to deal with not only intense lightning damage, but all the other different varieties of encounter that the Guardians pose. So Jonathan's been teleported to the next arena. This one triggers a set of lightning pylons which go in a counterclockwise direction. An easy pattern to learn, but of course it's possible to walk into it if you're not expecting it at the time. So the Atlas of Worlds expansion is going to launch in December on PC and Xbox. We're targeting December 8th for PC and within a week for the Xbox release. In addition to all of the new map content we've shown you, the 32 maps, the Shaper and Elder content on the Atlas in terms of the special mods that appear on maps, the new Guardian fights, the fight against the Elder himself, and various new items that you can find, including Shaper and Elder rares. We've also got a whole pile of new content for the main game. There's 4 new skill gems, 6 new support gems, over 50 new unique items, and a whole new challenge league, the Abyss Challenge League, which will be launching alongside the expansion. You can find out more information on pathofexile.com/war. Thanks very much, and we hope to play it with you then.